The gunslingers, you know, the ones who made it into movies, into legend, they weren't the most dangerous men in the West, not even close. The truly brutal ones, the killers who left trails of bodies across territories with no law, no witnesses, no trials. History buried them, on purpose, because what they did, how they did it, doesn't fit the narrative America wanted to tell about itself. We're not talking about quick-draw artists or honorable lawmen. We're talking about men who killed for money, for land, for nothing at all. Men who understood that in the 1870s and 1880s west of the Mississippi, violence wasn't just common, it was currency. This is the list Hollywood never made. The 10 most brutal men of the Old West. Real names, real body counts, real reasons they were erased from your history books. And by the end, you'll understand why. Between 1865 and 1890, the American frontier was a legal vacuum. The Civil War had just ended. Thousands of men trained to kill had nowhere to go. No jobs, no structure, no consequences in territories that had sheriffs covering areas the size of Connecticut. Alone. Hollywood shows you Tombstone, Dodge City, clean streets, dramatic showdowns at high noon. The reality? Most killings happened in the dark, in saloons, on trails, in camps where no one would ever find the body. The men on this list understood something the legends didn't. In the real West, you didn't need to be fast. You needed to be willing, and you needed to be first. Court. Records, if they existed at all, were destroyed in fires, floods, or deliberately lost when towns wanted to forget what happened there. Newspaper archives from remote territories are incomplete or missing entirely. What we know comes from survivor testimonies, letters, and the occasional marshal's report that made it back east. These men didn't die in gunfights. Most of them lived long lives. That's how you know they were truly dangerous. Here's what got you killed in the real West. Hesitation. Not being slow on the draw. Hesitating to shoot a man in the back. Hesitating to kill someone over $5. Hesitating to assume every stranger was a threat. The men on this list never hesitated. Tom "Blackjack" Ketchum didn't wait for a fair fight. He walked into a camp near Folsom, New Mexico in 1897 and shot a sheepherder in his bedroll. No words, no warning. The man had been sleeping on land Ketchum wanted for cattle. That was enough. John Wesley Hardin, before he became a name people recognized, killed a man in 1868 for snoring too loud in a hotel room. Hardin was 15 years old. He shot through the wall, twice, then rode out before sunrise. This wasn't rage, it was calculation. In a world with no police, no forensics, no photographs to identify you in the next town, murder was a solution. And these men treated it like one. The error wasn't being violent. The error was believing someone wouldn't be. Here's what they don't teach. Most of these men weren't outlaws in the Hollywood sense. Some of them wore badges. Henry Plummer was the elected sheriff of Bannock, Montana in 1863. He was also the leader of a gang called the Innocents, responsible for over 100 stagecoach robberies and at least 102 murders in 18 months. He used his position to identify targets, schedule routes, and ensure no one investigated the crimes. When the town finally caught on, they hanged him from a gallows he had built himself to execute others. Then there's Jim Miller, Deacon. Jim. He dressed in a black frock coat, carried a Bible, didn't drink, didn't curse, attended church every Sunday. He was also a professional killer for hire who murdered at least 12 men, likely more than 50, between 1884 and 1909. He charged $150 per kill. He used a shotgun. He never missed. Miller wasn't an outlaw. He was a businessman. And in places like West Texas and Oklahoma Territory, men like him were hired by ranchers, by politicians, by anyone who needed a problem removed quietly. This is the part that was scrubbed from history. The West wasn't civilized by lawmen. It was controlled by whoever was willing to kill without hesitation and call it justice. So what happened to them? Some were caught. Most weren't. John Wesley Hardin killed at least 27 men, by his own count, before he was finally arrested in 1877. He served 17 years in prison, got out, became a lawyer, then got shot in the back by an off-duty lawman in 1895 while playing dice in El Paso. He died at 42. Never saw it coming. Jim Miller, the Deacon killer, was finally lynched in 1909 by a mob in Ada, Oklahoma. Not for murder, he'd gotten away with that for decades, but because he killed a popular former marshal. The town didn't wait for trial. They dragged him and 3 associates to a barn and hanged them from the rafters. Miller's last words, "Let the record show I've killed 51 men." Tom Ketchum was hanged in 1901 in Clayton, New Mexico. The noose was too long. It decapitated him in front of a crowd. Witnesses said his head rolled 6 feet. Newspapers called it botched. The hangman called it justice. But here's the truth they lived by. Survival in the West didn't mean being the fastest. It meant being the most ruthless, the most patient, and, most importantly, the most forgettable. The ones who lived long lives, they were the ones no one ever wrote about. These 10 men, and dozens more like them, shaped the American frontier in ways your textbooks will never admit. They weren't heroes. They weren't villains in the movie sense. They were products of a time and place where violence was the only universal language, and mercy was a luxury no one could afford. Hollywood gave you Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. History gave you Henry Plummer and Deacon Jim Miller. The difference? The real killers didn't need to become legends. They just needed to survive long enough to die in bed, and most of them did. That's the West they didn't want you to know.